Welcome to Heritage Acres Homestead. I'm Chas. Here you'll find our family as we strive to live a life that pleases the Lord. We do our best to make the most out of what we've been given, so we'd like to invite you to come along and join us on our journey.
Good morning, everybody. Today, well, when you see this, it won't be, but today, Thursday, is my youngest son's 18th birthday. And that means birthday pie. Yeah. You know, you've heard of birthday cake. Well, when he was a little boy, he used to want the same cake for years. It was a chocolate cake with chocolate icing, and I would take one of his toys and wash them up really well, and then I would take the cake and I would dig some of the cake out, and then I would put his toy on there like it was excavating the cake. And that's what his cake was every single year, just about. One year we did a farmer cake, but it was a chocolate cake with chocolate icing too. And then he kind of changed over. And we went from birthday cake to birthday donuts. And that was a thing for a while for him. And I guess maybe about 5 or so years ago, he changed again and decided he wanted birthday pie. And so birthday pie was born. He's always been a little bit, different. Everybody else usually has a certain kind of cake that they want, and it's, they choose. Now, I will say Cameo did choose chocolate chip cookies for her birthday treat this past year. But Abe has asked for birthday pie, so I'm working on my pie shell right now, and I figured I would share the recipe with y'all because this is Shannon's Mamaw's strawberry pie. So first thing, I've got my pie shell, and I'm gonna prick it. Now this is the recipe here. You don't bake the strawberries into the pie, so we need this pie shell to be baked off first thing. So I'm just gonna prick the bottom of the pie shell. I'm gonna take some parchment paper and lay it in there. And then I have some, I actually bought myself some of those beads, baking beads, to put in the bottom of a pie, but I didn't have enough because I always make at least 2 at a time. So I added some garbanzo beans into that parchment paper. Make sure you use some parchment paper because the beans will stick if you don't. Pie shell won't shrink back on me. And my oven is heated. And I'm going to go ahead and pour a few more in there to make sure it gets all the way up the edges. Pie crusts are made with fat. So if you use butter or lard like I do, they want to shrink back down because the fat will get nice and soft, and which makes a wonderful crust. But you've got to prevent that from happening by baking it off with something kind of holding your shape. So, and being that this pie doesn't get baked, we have to bake our crust first. So, into the oven this will go. And then these beans are just reusable. I'll pour them right back into my jar here once we're done. So now let me get my other pie shell ready. That way I can use the oven, more efficiently by doing 2 rather than 1 at a time. Now with this recipe, you can do a store-bought shell, or you can use your own family recipe, or you can use mine. And I will include that at the end of the video. My throat has been a little bit dry this week, and I had full intentions of making my video this week something totally different. I was actually going to make a video on how I make fire cider, because I've been taking that quite a lot this week, trying to hit whatever this is before it tries to hit me. And that's how we work around here. If there are signs or symptoms of sickness, we try to knock them with something beforehand, and fire cider and fermented garlic and elderberry is our usual go-tos. So that's what I was going to talk about in my video, but being that it's Abe's birthday, we're going to make pie instead. And you don't have to crimp the crust around the edge. You can do whatever you like. Actually, I think I might do a little crisscross with a fork since I've got one here. It's a pretty neat way of doing it too. So I just kind of go around with my thumb and press the pie shell into the top so it helps it to not shrink back as much too. And my pie shell, or my pie plates, have a fluted edge, so it kind of helps to make that shape. But you can take a fork and you can go in and you can crimp the edge too. And it looks really pretty when you're done. So just follow it along. Let's see if I can show that to you. See how that looks? So I'll just finish doing this. I'll put my parchment paper in there, my beans, and we'll get this ready to go in the oven with the other. One year we had a kind of special birthday party for Abe, and I think it was his 13th birthday, probably when this all started. I think that was the year that he switched over to birthday pie. Right, now let me prick the edges. But anyways, that year we had kind of a big party. We had Shannon and several men and our preacher. They all came and spoke blessings and words of encouragement, and just as Abe starts to become a man, you know, you start taking on more responsibilities and stuff like that. Not that he was a man at 13, but you know, you're growing every single day. Alrighty, so now let's pour these in there. Anyway, so on that day, I made every kind of pie I could think of. I made pumpkin, key lime, coconut, strawberry, which is what we're making today, strawberry pie. Oh, gracious. Chocolate. Every pie that is in my repertoire, I made. And it was delicious, and it was so fun. Pies are great, aren't they? I mean, I love pie. I think they don't get enough love. Cakes are just, you know, so popular and everything, but I like a good pie. Alrighty, so we're ready with this one. This one is a more shallow pan, so it doesn't take as much to fill it up. So let's get these in the oven, and that way we can get to working on our filling. So as soon as you pull your pies out, give them just a couple minutes, and then get those baking beans out so they can start cooling. That's always a tricky part. So I just lift mine up and then pour them right back in to my jar. And they're hot, so be careful. Look at that beautiful crust. It's gonna be so good. All right, let's get the beans out of this one. This one has many more beans than the other. So maybe I won't make a big fat mess. I will save that parchment too, and I will use it again, like when I bake bread, because waste not, want not. And these will just go right back in, because they weren't touching the pie crust, so they're not oily or greasy or dirty in any way. They just go right back in my jar, right back in on my shelf, and I'll use them later. So now I have 2 lovely pie crusts, and I will set them over here in front of the fan to cool so I can fill them once I get my filling ready. Okay, so we're going to start our filling right now. So what I have in my pot is 1.5 cups of water and 1.5 cups of sugar. And to that, I'm going to add 1/4 cup of cornstarch or arrowroot, whichever one you like. This is gonna help thicken and make it that jello-y consistency. I'm gonna have to get a spoon and scoop that out. Because that's too large. I'll be back. So I suggest to do this second, like your second step, because you want this to cool down while you chop up your strawberries, because you don't want to add your strawberries to a hot glaze, or they'll kind of wilt them and make them watery. You don't want that. Alrighty. So there's my 1/4 cup of cornstarch, and I like to look for non-GMO cornstarch. I've used arrowroot too, and it works. Some people say that arrowroot gives a little bit more of a slimy taste. I don't think my palate's super refined, because I've not had an issue with that. But, and as you know, cornstarch will thicken it, but it won't thicken until it starts to boil. So yeah, you got to give it a few minutes. And what you want to do is be there kind of watching it, stirring it. You don't want it to get clumpy. And it is cloudy right now, and I'll show you that in just a second. It's cloudy now, but what you're going to do is, as you cook it and stir it, it's going to go from like a watery liquid right now in a cloudy one to a clearish thick one. And that's your next step. So we'll watch that and kind of speed it up so you don't have to stand here with me that long. All right, so see, we're at a kind of opaque, watery consistency right now. But in just a little bit, it's going to go from this, and then it'll just switch like that, because it's going to start boiling, and that's going to activate the cornstarch to get thick. All right, I don't know if you can tell it or not, but it's starting to bubble just a little bit. And it happens really fast once it does. So I'll see if I can catch it on here. All right, we're getting some action. All right, you can tell by the stirring that it is thickening. All right. Give it just another few minutes, maybe not a few minutes, but a few seconds, because it's turning that clear color. Yep, it's starting to spit, so we want to get it off the heat. See how you can see that it's starting to be clear now? There's a lot of bubbles in there, but it's turning clear. And it's nice and thick. And it will thicken even more as it cools. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add a 3-ounce packet of strawberry jello. Let's stir that in. And let that cool completely before adding our strawberries. Hey, Denver, come here. Hey, Denny. Denny, come here and look. Let's empty the rain gauge. We've had 6 inches of rain. While our filling is cooling down, we're going to take some strawberries. I'm just going to pop the little green tops off of them and cut them. Now, you can do what you like. I like to cut them in smallish pieces. I think it looks better. I think it tastes better. I just like it better than having a large hunk of strawberry in the pie. I don't know, I just like it better when they're kind of smallish. Now, I'm not saying minced, but you know, like cubed. So I want to go ahead and get these cut while that's cooling, so when it's finished and it's cool enough, I can go ahead and toss these into it, stir it up, and let it completely get cold and put it in our pie shells so we can have a nice chilled pie. Also, I love this with homemade whipped cream. But I love homemade whipped cream. I'm going to admit this to you, and I'm kind of saddened by it. But several of my children, now I can't say I don't like it too, because I grew up with it, but I do prefer real whipped cream. Cool Whip. I know. But my kids, some of my kids, like Cool Whip. And I'm not probably going to turn it down if there's not any whipped cream. But it is unfortunate that they would probably choose the Cool Whip over my whipped cream. you know, we grow up. Sometimes it's just the taste that reminds you of something else and you are fond of it. But I try my best to not ever buy it. But I did buy it for this simply because I knew that she would be here and want whipped cream with her pie. So we have Cool Whip. But I'm making whipped cream too. So I just take that top green off. I try not to take any strawberry. And then I'm just going to chop them up. And I'm just going to continue doing this until I have 1.5 pints of strawberries. And that's going to fill 2 pies. It should fill 2 pies. 2 regular pies. If you have a deep dish, you may need more. And I do have 1 deep dish pie plate. So I may do a little bit more. Things are cooled down, so I've got my congealed sugar and I've got my strawberries here. I'm going to pour them into my jello mixture here. And just stir this up till all the strawberries kind of are just saturated in that jello mixture. And then we're gonna pour it up into our pie shells, because as soon as it's cool, everything's cool, the shells, the mix, you want to get this into the fridge. Because that way it can set up. Because like I said, it is cooled down and it's thickened up, but you want it really nice and thick and set up when you serve it. And right now it moves a little bit too much. So let's get this in the fridge.